Well, welcome back to another BYOG party, everybody. Uh, Hopefully, you know by now what BYOG means, be your own guarantee. So, this is going to be a special treat. I hope you understand how special this is to have my good friend Katie here, fellow Michigangsta. Uh, but yeah, she's going to get started. We're just going to have a nice conversation. Obviously, if you have any questions and you're on live, put them in the chat. Um, and then if you're watching the recording, you can put them in the comments, and then we'll try to answer those as well. But just a little bit about Katie. I wanted to uh, just introduce her a little bit so you can understand how cool this is that she's here with us. I'm actually going to read it so I don't miss anything. But she's the national voice of healthy kids cooking. She's a former teacher, a two-time TEDx speaker, a writer of, I think, 8 cookbooks. I think that's what it said, and mom of 4 kids. She's created Kids Cook Real Food e-course, which is recommended by the Wall Street Journal as the best online cooking class for kids. Her blog is called Kitchen Stewardship, and it helps families stay healthy without going crazy. And she's on a mission to connect families around healthy food, teach every child to cook, and help families instill all important life skills. So, with that, Katie, I want to welcome you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you, Doc. I did thumbs up when you said Michigangster. I should have done like the
Yeah.
Michigan, like the upper and
Oh,
lower peninsula. That should
yeah.
be our sign.
Yes, you're right. And then you just got to point on your hand where you're from. But you're farther out this way. Or wait, yeah, you're away from
Yes.
the thumb. I'm more central, south central in Lansing. But yes,
Yeah.
I
But I
mean it's
grew up
fun.
in the tip of the mitt. This is how we talk in Michigan, folks. It truly is.
Yeah. But yes, well, I love this topic. I love what you're doing. Just again, BYOG, be your own guarantee. This includes as parents for our kids, helping kids become independent and learning things that they're they're learning less and less of. Would you
Mhm.
agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, kids know so few life skills now as far as they're knowing their way around the kitchen. And honestly, I've been told that most adults don't know how to change a tire, for example. My my daughter just turned 16, and the used car we were able to find with her, the spare tire is all rusted up. So we took it into the shop. We said, we're not sure she'll be able to get this down. And the guy was like, does anyone really need this anymore? Like everyone just calls for a tow because insurance covers it. And I thought, that's like an analogy for the world, right? Everybody just does convenience food because it's quicker, easier, and sometimes cheaper. Everybody just does what the doctor says or goes to the doctor for the smallest thing because insurance covers it and it's free, right? And I'm doing big air quotes because it's not free. It feels free, it's not. So I thought, oh yeah, we all need a little more spare tire knowledge about our bodies, our cars, our world, right? Our kitchen.
Yeah, and that just reminds me. I know again when we get a flat tire, if one of my girls' cars gets a flat tire, it's one of those like I just want to get it done, right? And I think that's where we as parents or grandparents or adults fall into that trap, even at work. Like if we're training somebody, where we fall into that routine of, well, I just want to get it done instead of teaching them how to do it. And it's such an important skill. I mean, this just happened a couple months ago with my daughter's tire, and I had to learn how to because it was rusted on there and I couldn't
Yep.
get the tire off. And I called the tire company and said, or the, discount tire where I was going to take it anyway to get the tire fixed. But like usually just take a 2x4 and bang on it. Like, okay. And that's what I
That
did.
was the solution.
Yeah. Like it, and like, yeah, that works. But anyway, I don't want to get down into the weeds of that, but can you let us know, like, what are considered life skills?
Well, I really see two major categories of the life skills. There's the practical, right? How to clean a toilet, how to put sheets on a bed, doing laundry, and we go into things that little kids might want to know, like bike maintenance or entrepreneurship, like starting a business, looking at profit margins. There's so many sort of practical step by step skills. And those are great and they're super important, but they're really interesting in this digital, fast changing world because 10 or 20 years from now, some of them may be obsolete. Changing a tire. I mean, we taught that in Life Skills Now season 2, and possibly kids won't need to know that. We taught how to check your oil. Well, if electric cars become as big as some predict, we won't need to know that anymore. Does that mean that kids or adults shouldn't learn those practical life skills? No, because they're all an arena for many of the soft skills, those harder to teach, the untangible, the intangible skills like communicating, looking people in the eye, right? Following through, doing what you say you will do, reducing your own anxiety, taking control of, how you feel and knowing what to do with big emotions. The list could go on for dozens and dozens, but the only way to practice the soft skills is to do something in the real world that's difficult, usually, that you could fail at and that you might need to ask for a little help with, and you get all that practice. So we've got to teach the practical skills so kids know how to learn no matter what the world changes into decades from now.
That's so interesting that you say that, because you know, I don't know if people on here watching that saw that as a life skill, like looking people in the eye, how to communicate, how to work through the different, critical thinking or different problem solving things. Whereas they might see those more as like, okay, that's, especially like the problem solving. Okay, I'll get that in school. Well, not necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what the problem is. But yeah, that's so cool that you say that, because in my mind it was like the practical in my head, and I think for a lot of people that's the practical when we think of life skills, but it's also the emotional and mental life skills that we need.
Right. We're not going to make it through life. I mean, we know statistically that 1/3 of our teens will be diagnosed with an anxiety disorder, like actually on paper. And more than half of our teens and tweens say they feel anxious. They feel a little out of control every single day on a daily basis. I mean, more than half actually sounds a little low to me, but that's the official statistic. And to me, that's not okay. And we know, if you've seen the big media buzz right recently about the anxious generation, the new book that's come out, Jonathan Haidt is targeting smartphones and social media as being the critical turning point that's making those statistics shoot up for our tweens and teens. But I think I'm not disagreeing with him at all, but I think something that's happened when our kids are on social media and on screens is that they're not building up a body of evidence that they are capable, because they're not producing as much. They're consuming when they're on the screens, right? And so when we become a productive person in society, we're actually creating instead of consuming. We build up a body of evidence, our own personal proof bucket that says, oh, I did this hard thing, maybe I can do another hard thing, and then another, and then another. And when you can prove that to yourself, that's called self-esteem, right? That's called confidence. That's called being capable. And that's what our kids need. To me, that's the antidote to anxiety, because being anxious is defined as the fear of danger or fear of the unknown. Your response, sorry, it's your response to something fearful or dangerous. It's not actually the fearful or dangerous thing, it's inside, it's our response. And so, how do we change our responses? Our kids have to have proof that the thing that is dangerous is something over which they have power, right? The thing that they're afraid of is something that they might have some agency in that situation. And if they don't have skills, they'll never feel like they can do anything because they don't have the skills to do anything. And if they haven't shown themselves, proven to themselves, I can do hard things, then every, bigger, harder thing that they encounter as they grow into tweendom and teendom and young adulthood, they just become scarier and scarier, and they're less able to deal with them. And that, I think that's why anxiety is going up. So yes, I agree with Jonathan Haidt, the author of Anxious Generation, that it is smartphones are the turning point, but it's because we've reduced our kids' opportunity to build that body of proof that they're capable.
Didn't he also write the happiness hypothesis? I
I
think.
know he's had a few
I
other
think
books,
that.
but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Anyway, I didn't know if you
He's
knew
a
that off
social
the top of
psychologist, and I know he's been writing a
your.
long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's again interesting that you say that, because as adults, as parents, the dangerous situations, or we want to protect them, and sometimes it goes into overprotection. And
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes err on the other side of that, where I want the, or it depends on the situation, but we don't want our kids or people going through the rough times, even though, there will be trials in our lives. And if we don't know how to handle those, even like, especially as kids, where, especially as when we're adults and we see the quote unquote small problems that kids have, but they get anxious or nervous about them, like maybe a test or whatever it is. And if they don't learn how to, if we don't teach them or help them through these small problems, where, like you said, they build up their bucket of proof that they can do it and they can do that, can do this, can do that, then when they become adults, it's going to be that much harder. So, I mean, this is a great place to keep going, is how can we as adults and parents help our kids to fail?
Mm. Because our gut is saying protect. You're so right. Our gut is saying, I don't want my kids to be sad or angry or fearful or broken, right? I just want to protect them. And so it's really about retraining our own brains that failure is good. I mean, I know that that sounds like I'm oversimplifying, but it's so true. And that letting our kids do the things is good. So we're 2 weeks into our summer break right now, but I've been spending so much time preparing life skills now summer camp that it feels like we're just getting on the horse, so to speak. Like we just instituted our summer routines for my youngest two, who are 9 and 12, today. So I was walking the boys through, like, this is the chart. These are some things you need to do right before or after breakfast, before you head out to find a friend. Here's what you need to do when you come home for lunch. And they're like, they're fussing a little bit. They're like, this isn't fun. I said, I know. And it's so easy as a parent to think, oh, just let them have their childhood, right? Just let them, believe me, they have 90% of their minutes during the summer days to still have fun. And so I have to, like, self-talk, my parent talk, and say, like, this is good for them. Keep going. And one of the routines that I'm trying to implement is helping these boys notice what needs to be done. Because that's a skill that I know I have. I know my daughter has. She's 16. I'm not sure my 19-year-old son has it. So I'm not sure if it's a gender thing or a personality thing, but my 9 and 12-year-olds definitely do not have this skill of, like, oh, I spilled some milk. I should clean that up. They're like, right? Oblivious. Nothing is on the table. And so I said, we need to have a lunchtime look, that after lunch, here's your job. And I have like a list of 3 or 4 questions. Look around the room, right? What did you get out for lunch that you need to put away? Okay. Look around the room again. Is there anything else that's out on a surface that you might be responsible for? Look around the room again. Are the surfaces clean and ready for the next person? So I'm trying to build these questions in their brain. But even as I was teaching them, I found myself wanting to ask the questions, right? I'm grabbing the sheet and saying, okay, next it's look around the room and are the surfaces ready for someone else? And I thought, no, I need to say, what's next? Because if I want the list to train them, I've got to let them do it for themselves, even though that process is going to take twice the time on day one, right? Rather than me just walking them through it, I needed for them to walk through it with me, just push just a little nudge, just so what's next? What's next? Because that's going to take a little more time today on Monday, but by Wednesday and Thursday, hopefully they're more trained to say what's next. And then the list will then train them to, hopefully, maybe we'll see if this works. It's an experiment to have that ability to look around and go, oh, there's dirty socks on the floor. By golly, those dirty socks are mine. Perhaps I could pick them up. Like, wouldn't that be lovely? Parents out there, if all your kids could have that ability. But it's hard. It's not intuitive as a parent to make sure that you're asking the questions that allow your kids to ask their own questions, right? And it's very similar with failure, that we're allowing them to do the task, even if we know it won't be done perfectly, so that they can know what it feels like to fail. That's really, really important. And then to show that, gently say, I don't know if this job was done exactly right. Sometimes we have to show them that the failure has happened. Sometimes it's obvious, because something breaks or something spills, or, whatever they're trying to do doesn't work. Um, but it's so vital for them to work through that. I call it that muscle of resilience. You know, you mentioned that we look at problems that make kids fearful or anxious or nervous or disappointed, and we say they're so tiny, right? Why is my 8-year-old melting down just because, you know, he ran out of time to have a snack today or a dessert today or whatever? And I'm like, ugh. Because, but how did we get to that point? When we were 8, that probably was a big disaster. And we got to that point because we've encountered bigger problems, right? The bigger problems make the little problems feel smaller. But if they never feel the little problems, the bigger problems are just going to feel bigger, right? It's all in that perspective. So we have to let them work through those smaller problems so that they can get to the phase of like conscious adulthood and realizing problems in perspective.
You know, as you say that, sometimes like, man, the whole noticing part or awareness is what I call it with my girls and family. It's like, you see this, you get my 20-year-old, 19-year-old, and 16-year-old daughters right now. And my oldest, for example, she goes to school, but she also works at a daycare. So she, has mail and stuff that she has, and she accumulates it sometimes on our kitchen island.
Mm.
And it sits there and sits there and sits there. And I'm, as you're talking about this, like, is it ever, I know it's not ever too late. I know it's all in the systems and how you can help them to see that. And I love the whole question part of it, asking them questions, but they have to get to the point of like, what's next? They have to argue for themselves, I basically say, or they have to teach themselves. And yeah, is it ever too late to try to, because I know you have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work with them?
Well, it can't be too late, right? Like I'm still improving. I know that you firmly believe you're still improving, that you're never a finished product. So it's definitely never too late. And yeah, the 19-year-old and the 16-year-old, we're constantly, since they were toddlers, I call it a gradual release of responsibility. Sometimes I do that in a good and healthy manner of gradually releasing the responsibility. Sometimes I forget, you know. Sometimes we look around and go, oh, they don't know that thing. Actually, my daughter learned a lesson the hard way. She recently got her license, as I mentioned, and drove herself and a friend to the beach. And we are literally the sunscreen family. Like we have tested 125 plus natural sunscreens. I talk about sunscreen all the time professionally. And she went to the beach at Lake Michigan, and it was kind of cloudy. This was 2 weeks ago. It was like 70. And when she got there, she thought, oh, I don't need to put sunscreen on, said her brain, even though she was going to be there all day and it's early in June and she, doesn't have the base tan. And she's still feeling it like 10 days later. The burn that she got, although she had sunscreen with her and she put it on partway through the day. And I just thought, oh my goodness, I forgot to narrate how I make decisions. So sometimes we're places and I'll go, oh, you don't have to put sunscreen on yet. Or it's late in the day, you don't have to reapply, right? But I apparently didn't narrate enough of the science behind sunscreen. Like if you're at the beach all day, you put it on right away. So she learned the hard way. And it's just, it's difficult for parents to think of everything. But as my kids are getting older, I'm finding myself narrating more and more complicated pieces of life. Right. So with the 16 and 19-year-olds, we've been talking about budget a lot because I realize they might see me spending money as, I'm in my mid 40s. I spend money differently than I did when I was 21. Right. And so the phase of life that they are about to enter is the penny pinching phase where you really need to know what you're spending and make very conscious decisions so that you're not overspending on the budget. And so I thought I need to make sure that they don't just spend like I spend. Like I might buy expensive raspberries at the farmer's market, but I would never have done that as a young wife and a young mom. My impulse buys are always food. Like I'm not a shoe girl. I'm not a fashion girl. I'm like, oh, I bought a flat of strawberries and we're just going to eat them instead of preserve them. Like that's my splurge. But I wanted the kids to know that when I was 20, 21, 24, I didn't shop like that. And so I kind of narrated that out loud, the difference between being in my young 20s and my mid 40s and how we do money and how I organize things. So I think it's amazing how many life skills we use from day to day that we just don't realize that we're using. And it's so good to pull kids in on those conversations. I'm sure I should ask them more questions, but so far I'm just narrating and kind of teaching.
Man, I'm going to drop this in the chat right now for the Life Skills Now summer camp so people can see that and get a link to it. Because it's, I mean, as you're talking about budget and all these different life skills, you have created this virtual summer camp, and it started today. So that's why I wanted to. Again, we were talking about this, and because I just had a BYOG party about a week and a half ago, and usually it's at least 2 to 4 weeks between them. But I wanted to have you on here because I know that's going on. I didn't want it to be too late for people to learn about that, and just get even behind the scenes with you and ask you specific questions about life skills, and especially if they're going through something with their kids. And because I know you're also certified in stress mastery too, right? Is that what's, so even how you were talking previously about the anxiety and how to help our kids deal with that, I can see roots of what you've learned there in these as well.
Mhm.
And with this summer camp, that's kids of all ages, like 5 to 18 years old, different types of programs. And as you go, if you click on that link and you go down and see all the different workshops that are going on, I have a special affinity to I know there's in the health, I believe the health section about how to hold your phone and like proper tech posture, correct?
Yes, that's
So that
totally in your wheelhouse.
I know exactly. And heck, if you need somebody to, and I wrote this in one of my emails talking about these camps, is uh, if you need somebody to mansplain, teach how to, kids how to mansplain. My wife said I'd be a good one to teach that one.
Oh, that'll be your skill for next
Yeah,
year. Oh, wow.
apparently, yes. I call it leave no doubt. She says it's, mansplain. Like, well, when I don't, guess what happens? Things get lost. Just like the whole sunscreen thing. It's funny that you say that because once people, I think, get a horrible sunburn, that's something they never forget. I know I've never forgotten mine, the one that I've had. So I'm diligent with making sure that I'm covered up or making sure that I got sunblock on. My daughters are the same way. Sometimes I'm like, all right, just be in the sun for a little bit, but then put it on. But anyway, that's a
Yeah.
little bit of a regression there. But anyway, okay, so got that. Make sure everybody looks at that. And I just wanted to put that in there now so I don't forget. And we could even go into it and see that. But well, let's talk about that. What type of things are you teaching in the Life Skills Now summer camps?
Well, you mentioned our wellness track. And so we do have a two-part series with a local physical therapist here. And she talks about posture and gives 5 exercises that anyone can do to kind of avoid tech neck. And then in the second piece, it's, yeah, how do you improve the way you're holding your phone and being on your laptop and carrying your backpack? Okay, so it's so cool to put it lower than your waist, so she explained all that and why you might want to do it. It's actually a really fun video because she and my daughter have a good relationship, so they banter a little bit. We've got a 3-part series on bike maintenance, which it jazzes me up thinking about, 8 and 10-year-old boys, like, yeah, I can change my bike tire. Like, I'll wash and wax your bike for a summer job, like, how cool would that be? We do have an entrepreneurship series teaching kids how to make money at all different levels, as simple as, making the lemonade stand, and then all the way up to maybe what some teens might be able to do starting genuine businesses. I should go back to that wellness track because that's going to be a good one for your group. We've got an MD who her philosophy on what she does is that when kids and teens understand the science behind their bodies, they're more likely to own their health. So rather than saying you should get more sleep and here's how you get more sleep, it's here's what happens to your body while you sleep. Here's what happens to your body when you don't get enough sleep. And then you just kind of let it float and be like, what kind of person do you want to be, so she teaches on sleep and on blood sugar, which I think a lot of adults are also going to learn a lot from. Dr. Pedram Shojai teaches some morning exercises. He calls them Jedi morning routine exercises that can improve focus for school, for the day. They're particularly great for neurodivergent kids to really connect the two halves of the brain and get them ready for the day. I'm looking at our itinerary here. There's 100 workshops. So when I say, a name or two, I am literally just scratching the surface because there are 100 free this week. Um, let's see, Shelby Stover is a fitness coach. She's teaching how to build a habit of family fitness. So she challenges families to like, how do you incorporate movement naturally into your day, or maybe have little parent kid challenges, which is really cool. Um, what else is in there? Myth busting food, simplifying eating in a complicated world from a dietitian. So again, talking to teens about what is real, about what they see out there on social media. We do a lot. Of course, I'm at Kids Cook Real Food, so we have plenty of cooking from our family. We do some salads you can make by heart, is what I call it, like how you memorize a recipe and then switch it up and be creative. We've got a couple prize-winning competitive barbecue teens who are teaching how to grill like steaks and pork chops, and this really cool breakfast sandwich that the one of the teens created himself. It's probably not like the most healthy because it takes cinnamon rolls as the bun, but you could make your own, like, homemade gluten-free cinnamon rolls. That's where I would go. But the kids are having a lot of fun. I've already seen some pictures today. That one, the breakfast sandwich, is live today, and I've seen like 3 or 4 pictures already of kids like holding up their sandwich that they grilled for breakfast. Um, so the goal is really to, again, give kids that arena of a very practical skill that they can use throughout their lives, but also it's going to give them a chance to practice things like resilience and fortitude and perseverance, those unteachable, I call them unteachable life skills.
Yeah. What I can you so let me ask you this, because this week it's free. So if people are watching this week, they can watch these for free.
Yep.
Now, are two questions. First, after this week, let's say somebody's watching the recording next week, a month, 2 months from now, how do they get access to that, to
Yeah.
these
So
videos?
your link will always go somewhere happy. We
Okay.
always have a little taste for free, so probably like 2 to 3 workshops for free throughout the year. And then we do sell the package as an evergreen product, and a lot of, especially homeschooling families, love to use that as a curriculum. We have a lot of traditional schooling families who really like to have that for, rainy summer days, and keeping some sort of routine in the summer, or Saturdays, or spring break, or Christmas break. So a lot of people find that they really like the flexibility of owning the classes, and it's that one-time fee. It's not a membership, which means if your kid is 6 or 8 or 10 and you're looking at all these teen workshops and going, oh, like I really want them to have, I want them to have all the stuff that the teens are learning. I say put a reminder in your iCal or your Google Calendar for like 5 years from now. Hey, you still have this. Get in now. Your kid's old enough.
Oh, man, that is so cool. As you said, for homeschool kids, homeschool teachers, that's a great idea having this part of the curriculum. I see. Wow, didn't even think about that, but that's perfect.
Yeah, we have a lot of homeschoolers in our audience because I think they're more used to
Right.
schooling at home, and it feels like school. And I know some kids are like, I don't know if I want to do it. But then when they get in there, we keep our videos very, very short. My goal is productive screen time. Let's use the screens for good and then get them off and into the real world. I saw one review today on the first part of the bike maintenance workshop is live today, and it's just all the parts of the bike, which I tell you what, I had no idea. Like, not even, we don't even get into like the gears and the shifting. There's so many parts to a bicycle. And one mom said, oh, my kids like bolted outside, started fiddling with things and tightening stuff on their bikes, and they could not wait to get going. And just getting the seat to the right height. Like, how many kids are biking around? Probably, and especially you with the chiropractics and the ergonomics, how many kids have their seats way too low for their body to be performing properly? So that was their mission in that workshop was go out and test your bike seat, learn how to move it up and down and back and forth. I had so many kids say, I didn't know it could move back and forth. I'm like, me neither. I learned that while we filmed with it, because we filmed at a local bike shop. And it's just so fun. It's so fun for me to hear how many kids around the world are going, I want to do that right now, and they're running outside or they're running to the kitchen. And so the motivation is there for the kids. They love feeling competent, right? This is not us like forcing life skills upon our kids. This is the kids hungry to feel like they know how to do something and how to do it well. That feels great. What kid or adult doesn't want that feeling?
And one other question about the summer camps. Now, you said there's 100 or over 100 workshops. Are they all released for the week, or do you do it in phases? So they're all like available now.
Right. For this week, it is phases. So we have about 20-ish
Okay.
each day. So today's workshops will disappear by tomorrow, and tomorrow's workshops will be new, but we make sure that they're incredibly varied, so you'll have one or two from the wellness track every day, one or two from finances and entrepreneurship, and that the age groups are well balanced as well. So we do have some parent workshops because we're still growing and learning. We want to learn along with our kids and demonstrate that lifelong, ability to be a lifelong learner. And then we've got our kind of our teen and our medium-sized kids and our little kids. And we say usually cooking and gardening spans all the age groups, right? A 5-year-old can be mom or dad's sidekick, and a 15-year-old, 12-year-old can do it on their own.
So I want to put this out there to everybody on here. If you have any questions, put them in the chat as we're talking, anything like you want to ask Katie about. But as you're thinking about that, put it in the chat. I want to ask Katie, all right, so you have all these different workshops for life skills. You've been doing this for these camps, for this is the third year now.
Yeah.
But I need you to narrow down, not just to one, I'll give you three. What are the three biggest life skills? Or let's narrow down like three biggest life skills that we can learn as adults and parents and caregivers, and what kids can also learn.
Well, it's an evil question because you're right. This is our third summer doing Life Skills Now summer camp. So we have 250 accumulated life skills. Pick three. I'll be so nice. I won't make you pick one. Yeah, that's a super evil question. The thing is, though, is that I could pick one because the best life skill is the ability to learn, plain and simple. And that's not a skill that you make a workshop on, right? See, guys, I cheated. That's all the workshops. Haha, I win. But it's true, though. The most important life skill to pass on to our kids is how to learn, how to love learning, right? How to be curious, how to be hungry for knowledge. And I think that's what we do, right? We're not giving kids depth. Like, I'm never going to lie to someone and say, oh, yeah, your kids will be an expert in such and such after Life Skills Now summer camp. That's not the goal. The goal is the breadth. It's little tastes and little dipping your toes in. And what's so beautiful is that we have no idea what life skills, what practical life skills, at least, that our kids will need most in this world 10 and 20 years from now when they're grown-ups. But I guarantee they will need to know how to learn. Right. And so the ability to have 100 different skills to kind of dip your toe in, it allows families to say, wow, I don't know how to do this. I would never introduce my child to, the skill of interviewing like a good podcaster or bike maintenance. Even I'm looking over here like critical thinking. We've got Matt Smith from Paleo Valley teaches the art of the upsell in the entrepreneurship track. And like, how many parents would be like, yeah, my kid's doing a lemonade stand. I'm going to go out and teach them how to make a little more money on this lemonade stand. Unless you're an entrepreneur yourself, you might not think in that way. So that's the beauty of 70 experts joining your parenting team, is your kids now have this smorgasbord menu of skills that maybe you never would have thought to introduce them to. And some of them might be, their genius level skill or their zone of genius that they're just going to love for the rest of their life. But you wouldn't have thought about it without this opportunity.
Well, and obviously you practice what you teach and you practice what you preach with your kids. Because I know, your 19-year-old has started a video editing business, correct?
We kept him very busy with 100 workshops. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He learned a little bit from failure too the last month or two. Time
Oh,
management.
oh yes. Well, I mean, since you kind of moved around my 3 question thing and said, okay, learning. So are there certain things that you help that you see as, okay, this is what I need to do to help my kids learn? Are there certain
Mm.
techniques that you use or practices? Like asking questions could be one of
Yeah.
those, right?
Yeah,
Asking,
you stole the words out of my mouth basically because I was going to say we foster an attitude of curiosity, right? As that we're looking around the world going, what does that mean? Tell me more about this. Could I do that? Right? Or an attitude of confidence. We've been talking a lot the last week or so in my home about leadership and what that looks like and what powerful but gentle leadership looks like. We've had a few experiences where a couple of us from the family have had a teacher or a person in the leadership role who was like self-deprecating. They weren't prepared. They kept saying that they were bad at what they were doing, and we just thought, this doesn't feel good. I don't enjoy the feeling of being led in this situation by a person who's pulling back all the time and making negative comments about their own prowess. Now, I don't enjoy the opposite. I don't enjoy bravado and people like actually saying how awesome they are. I just want you to be confident, right? Like, you don't say you're awesome, just be awesome. And if you're not awesome, work toward it. So we're really kind of working on that. I think the older 2 kids and I is, what does that look like? What does good leadership look like? And so we talk about people in our lives who are strong leaders and maybe where like my son identified his other job is as an assistant director in our theater program in our community. And he said, yeah, the director said when I first started that my weakness was that I kept waffling. I'd be trying to tell some of the actors what to do, and in front of them I would sort of freeze and have trouble making a decision and sticking to it. And I thought, yeah, that's really hard to do if it's not you're not naturally great at making decisions quickly. That's not his gift. And I said, but you're right. When you're in front of people, you just have to say, I want you to do this. And then if you change it later, that's something. But you can't say, well, maybe you could do this, or maybe we should do this. I don't know. Like people don't feel safe in that situation. So that's something that he's actively working on. And it's so neat to watch. Like our bigger kid, you parent teens too. It's so neat to watch them grow and work on themselves, intentionally.
oh, yes. And I'm hoping and still working on trying to get myself to grow and also my girls to grow and understanding and because a lot of times you see what they're not doing versus what they have already learned in the foundation that has been set as well, especially when the girls get or my girls have gotten older and I look back at old pictures and even just like on the shelf behind there, just looking at just thinking, oh man, those were the good old days when they were just
Oh,
little kid, 6, 8, 10 years old. And but when you're in that time, so you're like, oh, I just want them to be able to do blank by themselves. And then we wish that time away. And but we want to do that in a obviously productive serving way. And that's why I love these life skills camps
yeah. I
because
think we can have it all. I think we can have kids who appreciate their childhoods, who know how to play, right? The one of the premises of the anxious generation that I've mentioned already is that we need more boredom. And we need time where kids are off screens just being bored. And I told our parents last night I hosted the grown-ups opening kickoff party for Life Skills Now summer camp, and I said sometimes I worry that like I'm totally behind that idea. Our kids do need more boredom, and do people look at what I'm doing with these virtual camps and say, oh, but that's like you're trying to fill their time. You're trying to overschedule them, Katie. And I'm like, what I'm really trying to do is they're going to be on screens a little bit this summer. For 99% of Americans, our kids will have some screen time. So let's make that productive and the kind of screen time that shoots them off the screens afterward into the real world instead of sucking them in like social media and YouTube and Netflix next playing does, right? So that's my goal. We don't have like next playing. It's like go do something. But I do think our kids can have both. I think they can play and they can enjoy their childhood and they can have unstructured time, right? I mentioned my 9-year-old had 2 friends out for probably an hour playing with water balloons, and they were bored and we didn't have the right kind of water balloons. So they used big water balloons, big balloons, and fill them with water. It's so good to see kids be creative with what they have. On the flip side, my 12-year-old right now, I can hear, is starting to make dinner. It is his night to make tacos. So he's had most of his day with unstructured time, and he's now serving the family. I'm hearing clinking. I'm hoping it's children unloading the dishwasher and not my husband. I'll find out. But it's coming up on 5 p.m. Eastern here in Michigan. We got some evening events here. We got to get dinner going, and I'm stuck. You asked me to do this, so I couldn't make dinner. No, it's his night. It's his night anyway to do tacos. But that's what we've done. He's 12. He just finished his 7th grade year, and this whole school year, he's made tacos every Monday. So he has this level of mastery of that one recipe that's really high. That's my philosophy on teaching kids to cook, is when you give them a night to make dinner, just let them do the same recipe for 3 to 9 months. And they have this incredible level of mastery. They know, they walk in the kitchen at 4:17, dinner's on the table by 5, right? Like he's got it down to a science. He's faster than I am at getting dinner, because I'm going like, oh, but I can do this and I can do that. And I should put this away. And he's like, dinner, right? Like he just gets it done. And then we'll shift him throughout the summer and into next school year. We'll shift him into every other week. So it'll be tacos one week and something new where he can look it up the next week. So that's kind of how we just scaffold our kids and make it, it's not scary, it's not hard. It's sometimes annoying. I mean, he doesn't always like stopping playing with his buddies and coming in to cook, but it's also not too much to ask. We are not stealing his childhood.
I love that. I mean, because that fits right in as well. Just the whole make sure they master the one recipe and learn how to do that over and over again. Again, falls into the core value that I have of simple and consistent. Just
Love
keep
it.
it simple and consistent, learning to that simple thing done consistently over time, not just time passing will create mastery, but the simple and consistent effort will. So, man, another great tip. I wasn't even expecting that one. So beautiful.
Good. And we saw it with my older kids. They did a homemade pizza recipe. And they were a team. So poor John, he's our youngest one, is not quite ready, or maybe he didn't want him to be on his team. But the oldest two were a team, which is honestly another benefit of giving kids things to do, is it can form bonds with their siblings. It can form bonds with the parents too. I made tacos for the cast and crew of our musical that my youngest was in last weekend. And so I said, John, you don't have to make dinner this week, but you and I can work together because you're my taco man. And it was so nice. It was so nice to work side by side. And I think it could have felt like a real chore to me on a Saturday morning making tacos for 30 to 40 people, but it didn't, because I had him, in there with me as my sidekick, and he's so competent after 9 months of doing it. So that was nice. And I know that my two oldest, Paul and Leah, they really especially my girl, she really treasured that time every week with her brother. And as he got busier, he's the older one, as he got busier in high school, she kind of missed it. And so it's really cool. They each have their own night now, but much of the time when Paul is cooking on his night, Leah will come in and help, because she just likes being there with him. And that makes my heart happy.
Oh, that is so good. I appreciate you coming on with my BYOGers and sharing this. And I hope everybody takes advantage, especially if you're watching this week. And if it's after this week where it's, you'll still, if you go to that link that I'll have in the notes there, you'll still get access to some of them, but you can always buy it if you want to. This is, again, I always love talking to you, Katie. I always get inspired with my own kids and keeping on with them and teaching them. So, is there anything else you want to share today before we wrap up?
My last note for parents is always, don't let it feel so hard that it overwhelms your brain. Sometimes people say, oh, like teach kids to cook or teach kids life skills. Like it can feel like this big, huge boulder. So just think of it as becoming aware of the life skills you're using in your own life, right? And narrating or looking for opportunities. Maybe especially the younger kids are often curious. What are you doing? Mom, can I help? And sometimes we just have to get over our brain having that big boulder and make it into a little pebble. Like, Sure, you can help do one thing, right? Rather than cleaning the bathroom, teach them how to clean the sink. Or rather than learning how to cook, teach them how to measure a teaspoon of salt. Like, how can you break the boulder down into a pebble? Get over your own brain blocks and say yes to something.
That is so helpful. That's wow.
We're all overwhelmed. I know how you feel, moms and
Yeah,
dads. Like, we're all
that
like
is,
holding 50 boulders. So you can't take another one. So make it into a pebble.
and even if you're a grandparent on here, your kids are grown and you got grandkids now, I see that even with like my mom, my kid's grandmother, like she's a great baker and wants them to help, but then it gets overwhelming because she just wants to do it how she's been doing it. But just those little things, like what are the little things that they can do? Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you again, Katie. Thank you everybody else for being here. And again, as always, be your own guarantee for your health in your life. And we'll keep these going. We'll keep the parties going. We'll see everybody soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Stop. Stop.